Hi everyone, and I know you're expecting a card, so what's this scrapbook page doing here? Well, I wanted to show you how I got to this card inspiration, because I know that you, like me, will use pretty papers every day, and I've used these gorgeous graphic 45 papers on this layout, and I had some pretty scraps left over, and it really is a shame to waste such gorgeous papers. So I've got scraps of an ABC primer paper and Enchanted Garden, which was part of the Happy Haunting collection from Graphic 45. So I made this layout, and I'm going to show you how to use up some of those gorgeous scraps that you will have left over from other projects that you make. So I started out with this layout of my son and the daughters of a friend of ours, Sally, and we had a lovely walk and took this shot of our children standing in front of these sunflowers. So these papers were perfect for my layout, and these are the scraps that I've got left. So I'm going to show you how to make a double easel card and how to use up some of those pretty scraps that you'll have left from the projects that you've made. One of the nice things about making cards from scraps is that you are limited by the size of the scraps that you've got left. So if you look here, you can see that I've got some that are quite narrow and some that are a little bit wider. So I had to think about that when I put this card together. I'm going to give you the measurements for the exact card so you could mimic it with whatever scraps that you have and make your scraps match my paper sizes. But it's worth me mentioning, you know, if you're thinking about making cards with scraps, that you are going to have to be a little bit ingenious with the designs that you come up with to match the paper sizes that you have. And I definitely want to have a little bit of a chalkboard feel, because I quite liked the way this tag turned out, and so I'm going to use the black stock to give myself a little bit of a chalkboard effect for my greeting. I'm sorry I can't tell you the colour of this green cardstock. It is a basil cardstock, but it's been in my collection for quite some time, so I really couldn't tell you what colour it actually is. I've had a look through my swatches and I can't match it up, so it could well be that it isn't a colour that they carry anymore. But all I've done is match up the green to the green in my Graphic 45 papers, so you'd be doing a similar thing. The pattern papers that you're using, you're going to need a 12 by 12 piece of cardstock to cut out the basics for your easel card. So you're starting out with a piece of cardstock that measures at 6 by 12 inches. And I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but the birds are singing beautifully outside this morning, so I'm hoping that spring is on its way. So if you do hear the odd strange sound, it may be that my microphone picks it up. So you're going to score with your paper in the landscape position at 6 and 9 inches. And when I fold this, I'm folding it so that the texture is on the inside of the card, so that when my easel card is in position, the base actually has the texture on it, because that's the piece that's going to show. So the texture is on the inside, and I'm folding it in half, and then I'm folding that on the 9-inch score line, I'm folding in half again, and that makes the support for the easel card base. Now, because I'm making this into a double easel card, I want to split this card, and I'm going to do so by turning the card into the portrait position and scoring at 4 inches, but only scoring up to that second fold line. And that's just going to be a line, a guide for me to cut my card. And so I'm just putting my metal edge ruler against that score line, and then I'm going to cut with my craft knife. Make sure you hold your ruler nice and firm, line it up with your score line, and then cut so that you separate the two pieces of your easel card base. And then you're going to take a 6 by 6 inch square of the same colour cardstock, and you're going to cut it into two pieces. So one that measures 4 inches by 6 inches and one that measures 4 inches by 2 inches, and these are the pieces that we're going to decorate to make our easel card. Now, I've already decided I want a slightly narrow green frame and a blackboard look, so I'm cutting my piece of black cardstock at the moment I'm cutting it 1/8 of an inch shorter on the two measurements that I've had with the green cardstock, but that's not the measurement I end up with, so I'm going to give you the correct measurement. So instead of just taking 1/8 of an inch off, I end up taking 3/16 off. I know it's a little bit of a fiddly measurement. So the green cardstock measures 2 inches by 6 inches, and I'm just about to cut this piece so it measures 4 inches square. And then the two black pieces of cardstock are going to measure 3 13/16 square. I know that's a bit of a fiddly measurement, but it gives a fine border, and you can still see the green around. And then I'm going to trim the second piece. So if you look here, they're quite fine, and I can't see enough of the green, which is why I take off another 1/16 of an inch. And I'm about to do that now. So your black square is going to measure 3 13/16, and the long piece of black card is going to measure 1 13/16 by 5 13/16. And like I said, I'm going to give all the measurements for this card over on my blog to make you make it a little bit easy, that you don't have to stop and start this video. You can just print them off or write them down. I'm hoping to take this cutting guide a little bit further, because I think it would be easier still if I could manage to make some kind of PDF file for you, and that you could grab that from somewhere and print it off, but I'm not quite sure how to do that. It's not within my technical capabilities at the moment, and I think I can use something like Dropbox, so I'm going to investigate that, and as soon as I know how to do it, I will share the cutting guides with you in this way, and it'll make it much easier to be able to print them off and then just work along with the video with all your pieces already cut. And I know this tutorial is going to look a little bit organic, because I decided to leave in the design choices that I was making, because I was dictated by the amount of each of the gorgeous Graphic 45 papers that I had left. So I'm starting out using some of this tartan paper, and I want some kind of base for my sunflowers to grow out of. So I've cut a strip that measures 3/4 of an inch wide, and I'm just making sure that I've got enough to go across the bottom of both pieces of my black cardstock, and also across the width of my base of the easel card. So the measurements for those tartan strips are 3/4 of an inch by 1 13/16, and then 3/4 of an inch by 3 13/16, and that's the two pieces that are going to sit at the bottom of the black cardstock. And then you're going to have another piece that measures 13/16, and you're going to take approximately 3/16, so 5 13/16. I can hear the girls that come to my card class every month groaning as they hear 13/16. They like me to keep my measurements nice and simple, and when I move into 16ths, they're not very happy with me, and they always grumble, "Oh no, where's 13/16 on this paper trimmer?" But I know that you understand what I mean. You could take 1/4 of an inch off your original measurements if you weren't too happy with using 16ths. But I just thought I'd give you my process. I like a nice fine border in this instance, and 1/4 of an inch is just a little bit too chunky for me, hence I went for the 13/16. Now, if you're new to making easel cards, one of the things that you do need to know is that on your card base you have to make something that's raised, something that you can just tuck the easel portion of the card behind so that it stands up and doesn't slide down flat. So I'm just thinking about that and the scraps of paper that I've got, and I think I've got a plan. So now we're ready to attach the two little tartan strips to the black cardstock. So I'm just using double-sided tape to do that, and I'm just making sure that they're flush with the bottoms of both pieces of black cardstock. And now it's time for some fussy cutting, and you could do this with pattern papers that you have. You may have flowers or little images in your cardstock that you could make a feature out of on the narrow panel on this easel card. So you're either going to be using exactly the same papers as I've got here, which as I said before are from Graphic 45, or you're going to have something that you've chosen from your paper collection. Now you could either use elements from that paper collection that you can fussy cut like this, or perhaps you've got stickers or some other kind of embellishment that you can add into the mix of pattern papers. So I'm going to be a little while cutting out these sunflowers, as you can see, and so I'll get back to you in a second when I've finished. So a considerable time later and lots of fussy cutting has been going on, as you can see. So you want to have elements that you can decorate the narrow panel of this card with, and a few more elements to decorate the card base and the panel on the right hand side. So I've cut out lots and lots of sunflowers. The next thing that I decided to do was to look for a piece of ribbon to decorate this bottom strip, and definitely using up my scraps for this, so I'm going to have to be a little bit careful because I've only got this short run of red velvet rickrack, and it was the perfect red for this cardstock, so another great way for using up some scraps. And normally I would wrap the ribbon round to the back of the card to make sure that I didn't have any rough edges. I can't do that here because I really am down to the wire with the amount that I've got. So a little trick here, if you have to do a similar thing to use up a little piece of ribbon, then just take some clear or glue that dries clear, PVA glue, and just gently dab it onto the ends of your ribbon. So be careful not to make a huge mess, but just a little touch of it, and then let it dry, and it will just help with any kind of fraying that might go on otherwise. So like I said, I'm being very frugal. I'm using a strong double-sided tape to attach the ribbon, and then adding the glue to the ends of the ribbon so that it doesn't fray. And then I'm going to attach some of these gorgeous sunflowers. So I'm going to have one row of sunflowers slightly taller than the other, and when you're putting down images that are quite fiddly like this, I like to put my image onto a piece of scrap card so I don't get glue everywhere. I still managed to get a little bit of glue where I didn't want it, but luckily this glue dries clear. So I'm just tapping my shorter row of sunflowers into position, and then I'm going to attach my slightly taller row of sunflowers. So I've had to cut, because I'm using scraps, I've had to cut one sunflower separate. So it's all about thinking about your alternatives. If you haven't got enough one way, just think of it slightly differently, and I can match up my sunflowers so you won't know that I didn't cut out the run of sunflowers all in one go. And it was as I was attaching this piece of card to its green card base, thinking I was happy and it was finished, that I spotted this piece of cardstock that had turned over on my desk. So it measures 1/4 inch wide, and I'm just about to attach a little strip of the green leaf paper, which is on the back of the sunflower paper, and I'm just attaching that to the top of the two pieces of cardstock, just leaving a little bit of the black cardstock showing at the top. Again, I've just used double-sided tape, so the card's really starting to take shape now, and I've got another run of the green, and I'm just thinking about how I'm going to layer up the bottom of the easel card base. So starting with the green strip that I just finished with on the other card. So all of these measure 5 13/16 of an inch long, 1/4 inch wide for this strip. The next strip measures 3/4 inch wide. That's the tartan that we used on the bottom of the card. So just making sure that they're all the same width. And you will see when you see the final card at the end of this that I changed these strips around. It wasn't until I watched this video that I thought, actually, I've put the sunflower paper in the wrong place, and I switched this strip with the sunflower paper, which caused another little happy accident, and I'll just chat to you about that at the end. So again, you can see how little that I had of that rickrack ribbon. I really didn't have any scrap of that left over. So I'm attaching this ribbon embellished strip next onto the card base. And then I'm going to cut a piece of the sunflower paper that measures 3/4 inch wide, and this black strip also measures 3/4 inch wide. So we've got three strips that measure 3/4 of an inch wide, and one strip, which is the green leafy strip, that measures 1/4 of an inch wide. And they all measure 5 13/16 long. If you're making this card out of the papers that you have in your collection and not using the same papers as me, the chances are that that is the case. You're going to think of a way to decorate the raised strip that you're going to use as a stopper on your easel card base. I'm using these sunflower heads, so I'm shaping them with a ball tool and a piece of foam. Now the change of lighting is because my card on my camera filled up, so I had to download what I'd videoed already, and it's a change in the time of day, and it's not quite so sunny as you can see, and things are definitely a little bit cooler this afternoon. So I'm going to carry on now shaping my sunflowers. Now if you do anything like this where you're shaping paper, just be careful not to rush it, because if you do, and I did on one of my sunflowers, you'll push a hole into your paper and all your fussy cutting will be for nothing. So I'm just making sure that these little sunflower heads have a little bit of dimension. You could use brads on this strip, or you could use flowers that you cut out from the pattern papers that you're using, or there may be some other kind of image that you've decided to feature on this strip. You could use brads if you wanted to. So the next thing to do is definitely decorate this strip, or have the pieces ready to decorate this strip once it's attached to your card. So the strip that we're going to be decorating needs to be attached to the card base with foam pads or foam tape, because it needs to be raised. It's going to act as the stopper that holds our card in position once it's displayed. So I've got this black tape, which is perfect because it isn't going to show on the underside of the strip, and I'm going to attach that into position before I decorate it, because I'm going to be using silicone glue to attach my little flowers. If you're gluing pieces onto this strip, you could do that beforehand and then attach it in position. Now it's at this point that I didn't realise, once I've attached my sunflowers, I've got two strips of sunflowers close together. So you'll see at the end that I swap the sunflower strip with the tartan strip, and things look a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So next I'm going to stamp my greeting, and I've got this greeting that's flower orientated. So Knowing You has made my life bloom, and it's by Creative Expressions, and it's from the Nature's Sentiments set. And I'm just having a little test here to make sure that I'm going to be able to stamp this okay. I'm looking for a bit of a chalkboard effect, but I'm aware that I'm stamping onto a textured card, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, and neither is inking up my stamp, because it jogs my tripod. So hold on to your seat for a minute while I just stamp up or add the ink to my stamp. And I'm using a white Brilliance ink pad. It's a Moonlight White, and it's always worth testing your stamps if you're not sure about them before you stamp it on your cardstock, particularly if you're short of cardstock, which we are as we're using scraps. So I'm using my scraps just to see how this ink's going to turn out, and I know that it looks a little bit faded, but I've got a plan to use my white pen with it, so I'm happy with that. And now I'm going to go ahead and stamp my greeting onto my actual card itself. I'm being a little bit more delicate so I don't shake the camera, and then keep your fingers crossed. And I'm just going to stamp this slightly to one side, because I know that I'm going to put a little bit of embellishment on the right hand side of this panel. So I've centred it top and bottom and just moved it slightly to the left, pressing down well, and then keeping my fingers crossed that I get a good image. I'm definitely keeping my fingers crossed here, and they're good, no smudges. I know that it's a little bit faded, but as I said before, I've got a plan. I'm going to start by making sure that the ink's dry. This is a pigment ink, so I'm giving it a quick blast with my heat gun, and then I'm going to take my white pen and I'm going to trace over the letters. So I'm literally just using the stamp as a guide, and I'm quite happy if I get a little bit of the ink showing, because I do want a slight chalkboard effect. Now it's at this point when I was tracing around these letters that I thought, I really wish that I had this kind of handwriting in real life. And I know that's many hours I spent tracing letters out onto lined paper never really did me that much good, because I definitely do not have a neat hand, and I benefit from doing this kind of stylized writing if I ever have to do anything for real. I've learnt to do it on my scrapbook pages because you know, in future generations they might want to see what my handwriting was like, if they want to look at my scrapbook pages, of course. And I think that I quite like how this has turned out. And I'm just going to add a little bit of stitch detail. So I'm doing a line and a dot border all the way around the edge of this panel that's going to be my greeting on my card. So then it's time to attach this panel to the green card base, and as you can see I've also attached so far one sunflower, but you'll see that'll soon turn into two, because I think that I could make use of the sunflower you see on my desk. But first of all, I'm going to talk to you about attaching the card pieces to your easel card base. Now it's very important that these pieces line up, because otherwise they will clash with one another when you're trying to fold your card flat for postage and put in an envelope. So I always put my double-sided tape onto the card base. So you're going to put a piece right up to that score line, and then a piece in the middle for support and a piece at the very bottom. So I'm doing that for both sections of this card base. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the same stitch detail, so a dash and a dot up the two long sides of my panel to make it match the greeting that I've just stamped. And now we're going to be attaching our two finished panels to our card front, and we want them to lie flat when they're attached, and we don't want them to knock against one another. So I'm starting with my short panel, I'm lining it up with that bottom edge and making sure that it does not go over that cut line on the left hand side, and then exactly the same with the piece that's going on the left. Make sure that they line up exactly and do not cross over one another. That way you'll be able to lift them up into position, and you will also if you hold on to them when you tilt them up for the camera, and you will also be able to put them flat ready for postage. And this is where I thought I will add this little sunflower into the mix, and I'm going to attach that here, again using a little bit of PVA glue. Adding a few more stitches to this raised strip. Probably I should have done this before I attached it with foam tape, but as you can see it is possible to add this on afterwards. And then the final pieces of this card are these little sunflowers. So I've spaced them out to start with so I get an even run of little sunflower heads, and then I'm attaching them with a piece or a dot of silicone glue at the bottom of each of the strips. And I'm going to add this little sunflower, and that's my card finished. So a little bit of glue to attach that final little sunflower. Shame to waste it as I've spent all that time cutting it out. So I'm just adding it slightly forward to the original sunflower. So that's it from me, and I hope that you find this little double easel card a useful addition to your card folds, and that I've made you think a little bit about all those paper scraps that I know you have in your collection. So here's the card, and you can see now that I've moved that tartan strip and swapped it with the sunflower one. And something else that happened while I was doing this, because I moved that little piece of velvet ribbon forward, I ended up with two positions that I could stop or prop up the easels of this card. So if you look at this one, as well as moving my two little strips on the easel card base, now that the ribbon is slightly further forward, it means I can use that as a stopper for the tall section of the easel, and I'm using the sunflower strip as a stopper for the short section. So remember, next time you make a gorgeous project using fabulous papers, don't forget to use your scraps. There are lots of card designs out there where you can use up pretty scraps of paper that you love, and I've done that here, and I hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you for watching. So here are the links as promised. The first one is back to the blog post where I put the cutting guide for the card featured in this video. As I was doing that, I spotted this card and I thought you might like a link to a photo tutorial over on my blog that shows you how to make use of some more pretty Graphic 45 scraps, and also some of the bubble packaging that we collect when we buy all our embellishments. And one final link that might give you a little bit of a clue what I'll be up to over the coming weeks. It's something that I did or tried out for this time last year, and it's come up again, and it'll just give you an insight into the versatility and the beauty of Graphic 45 papers. So have a look and see if you can guess what I'm up to, and I'll see you again soon.